Hey y'all, hey, it's JJ Conway. Welcome to Building Wealth Together, where our goal is to help you walk in abundance and leave a legacy. It's Wealth Building Wednesday, where we answer your money questions with style and grace. So let's go ahead and get started with our first question. Me and my wife are newlyweds and new parents of our first child. We live with family to lower housing costs and due to pets, but we want to be debt-free and have our own home ASAP. Okay, yeah, I want you to have your own home ASAP, but I don't necessarily want you to buy your own home ASAP, okay? So here's where you're gonna have to do some soul searching, okay? A lot of financial planners and a lot of life growth planners will tell you, hey, you need to get up out of your parents' house and you all need to be your own family unit, okay? Most of the time, I'm going to agree with that, especially when a baby's involved. However, if parents are helping you watch the child so that you can go to work, or if parents are you have a great relationship, like I hope me and my sons will have a great relationship when they go off to college or they start working. If you have that great relationship, you can take advantage of this time to, no kidding, throw everything you can at savings. All right. Now, what I recommend that you do, you have this new baby, you have time. So don't feel rushed to hurry up and set up a 529 or a Coverdale for them. Just follow the program. And what I want you to do is get a little savings account so that if something happens and your parents can't stand in the gap, that you're able to take care of yourselves, right? You know, maybe $1,000 or so, depending on your income. Then I want you to pay off your debt. Now, it doesn't say here if you have debt. It says that you're living with your family to lower your living costs because you have pets, and it can be hard to rent something with pets, honestly. So I understand that, right? But it doesn't tell me if you have a lot of debt. If you do, I want you to pay off that debt. And then I want you to save a bigger savings account. And how big of a savings account do you need? Well, you kind of need a savings account that's going to cover 3 to 6 to 12 months. I'm telling people right now, in this time of COVID, to bump your emergency funds up from about 6 to 12 months. And I'm saying that because we don't know what the impact is. We thought we had beat this thing and we were starting to open everything up, and now it's the rising again and cases are popping up everywhere. And we just don't know if the hospitals are going to have capacity. And so, you think, well, I may not get it, but what if you have a medical condition that you need to go to the hospital, but you can't go to the hospital because there's like 20 people with COVID and they're using up all the supplies, right? Like, we just don't know. What if this thing drags out for a year or two? Some people in the military are saying it's going to be a long time. And what if it drags out for a year or two and the industry you're in, they cut your funding, they cut your job, you lose your grant? You want to have the beefy savings account. And then from there, I'm going to recommend, if you really, really want to buy a house first, that you save at least 20% down. I know other financial planners say 5% is fine, 10% is fine, but there's a great benefit you get to paying 20% down. And it's not just that you don't have to pay PMI. Not having to pay PMI is awesome. For those of you who don't know what PMI is, it's private mortgage insurance. If you get a property and you have a loan on it, the bank or whoever has your loan, they have an interest in your property. And by law, if something happens, they can have an insurance policy that will reimburse them for the cost of your loan. But the way it works in the real estate world is most of these policies will only reimburse the bank 80% of what you owe. The other 20%, the bank wouldn't get back from anybody. So if you don't put 20% down, the bank is going to make you buy a little insurance package that covers that gap. So if something happens to you and you can't pay your mortgage, the insurance company gives the main insurance company gives the bank their money to write off 80% of your mortgage, and then your PMI mortgage that you're paying, even though the bank picked it out, you're paying it. That covers the rest, so the bank gets made whole. So that's a huge benefit to paying 20% down. You don't have to pay that PMI, right? But another benefit that you get, and this is so important with today's increasingly mobile society, is that you have the ability to sell that house quickly. See, if I have a property and it's worth $100,000 and I only owe 80 on it. And I get the opportunity of a lifetime. I had a friend who did this. She was serving in the military, and she got the opportunity of a lifetime to go be in a television show with a very, very famous actor. It was a reality TV show, and she was one of the team stars. And she was like, early retirement, I'm out of here. Well, you have to have yourself in a position to be able to take advantage of opportunities like that. Now, I'm not saying we're all going to end up on TV, right? But the thing is you never know what's going to happen. When my father passed away, I couldn't do my business for months. When I got into the second car accident in 8 months, the second time I was rear-ended in 8 months, I had to drop my clients. I could not run my business for over a year. And you don't know when things like that are going to happen. And so you want to be able to take care of yourself, and you want to be able to move quickly. If you have a house that's worth $100,000 and you only owe 80 on it because you put 20% down, and your mother starts to get sick and she lives across the country, this case, the people who ask this question, it doesn't apply to them, but to other people who are asking, your mother lives on the other side of the country and she's getting sick and she can't take care of herself anymore. You can sell your house quick enough. Now, you might take a little bit of a loss, sure, but at least you're not stuck having to choose between this mortgage or your mother. And of course, many of us choose our parents. Many of us choose the opportunity of a lifetime. Many of us choose the health of our spouse. Sometimes the health of your spouse or yourself is impacted by where you live. So we will tend to choose those things over the financial burden of the house, but then that financial burden comes back to bite us later. So those are the reasons that I would recommend, and that's the strategy I would recommend that you do that will help you own your own home. Now, personally with me, if your relationship with your family is good, I would stay there, let them help you with the baby, and do all of that. However, most of us, living in the in-laws' house keeps us from being a family. And if you're in one of those situations where living in the in-laws' house is keeping you from being your own family unit, then I would actually look towards how can you get on a dry bones budget, save up enough to go get your own apartment and just rent for a little bit. Rent for a little bit, get yourself stabilized as your own family, and then look at moving out. Then look at buying a house. All right, there's nothing wrong with renting. People always say, well, I don't want to throw away money on rent. I should buy a house. As a military person who was moving every 2 years, I'm glad I didn't buy a house everywhere I moved. I would have lost money. In fact, every house that I have ever bought associated with the military, I have lost money on. And it's because I was just never there long enough to actually get the price to where it needed to be. And I always tended to go, the markets always tended to go down for me. This is why I don't like debt with real estate. It just hasn't worked for me. It's worked for plenty of other people, but you know what? I'm not them, and I'm not going to teach you something that doesn't work for me. All right, next question. Oh, I remember this person. This is a great question. Wife and me, mid-40s, we make $200 a year. We've got our 401k Roth, traditional IRA, all maxed out. Okay, we've got a full emergency fund. So now, what's next? Oh, I love questions like this because this is where it's time to dream and look at impact. Too many of us are so busy struggling that we never actually sit down and dream about what is life going to be like when we have all of our investments that we're going to need fully funded. What is life going to look like when we have a fully funded emergency account and when we have no debt, so that all the money coming in is money for us to go out and play with and to have impact in the community with? Oh, what a great day that'll be. And I don't know if you've ever sat down and thought about it, but I would encourage you to do that tonight. In fact, you know what? I'm not even going to be mad at you. You could take 30 seconds and do that right now while I'm talking. I won't be mad at you. I actually won't know because I'm behind a computer screen today, right? But I remember the first time I actually sat down my goals, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is too much. I can't have this much money. And I had to really deal with a lot of things in me that made me feel like I couldn't have that much money. Again, if you find that you resemble that remark, I want you to go to buildingwealthtogether.com and check out the Think and Grow Rich class or the Self-Image Mastery class. Your thinking pattern is so crucial into how you walk in abundance. And I'm not talking about being filthy rich, okay? You can walk in abundance on a very meager salary, but it's the attitude that you walk that opens up the doors for you, all right? So in this particular case, if you've got all your investments, you're investing 15 to 20% of your income, you've got you're still tithing to your ministry, your fully funded emergency fund. My next thing would be, what are your goals? Like, what do you know kidding want to do? And what has the Lord laid upon your heart? And those are all three different questions, right? Because sometimes the things we want to do, like I would love to go on a cruise every week, but I haven't been called to that, But I remember one day Google took me a weird way, and I ended up in one of our poorest neighborhoods. I had never been through that neighborhood. I didn't even know this area of town existed, but somehow there I was. And while I was driving through, the Lord spoke to me and dropped into my heart. I'm not talking about a big booming voice from heaven or anything, but the Lord spoke to me and asked me, if he gave me the resources, would I help these people? And I was like, well, yes, Lord, I would. And another time I got lost, and guess where I ended up? Back in that same neighborhood. And the Spirit dropped into my spirit the same thing. If I gave you the resources, would you help these people? And I was like, yes, Lord, if you gave me the resources to help them, I would help them. And by resources, I don't always mean money. Resources can often mean money, but it can also be having the doors open. It can mean building the relationships that you need to build, right? And so I'm trying to figure out, and like Google just keeps putting me in the wrong, like I keep trying to use Google, but Google just keeps sending me in circles, and I'm trying to get out of this neighborhood because it was getting dark and I didn't know where I was. I could see it on Google, but I couldn't figure out how to get out of it. And the next thing I know, I saw properties for sale. I was like, oh no, the Lord's going to make me actually act on this. And sure enough, one of the properties was only $16,000, and I started trying to work on that. But actually somebody else snapped it out from under me. But I started going to the neighborhood meetings and things to just try to get to know the residents and just make sure that I was going to be able to resonate with folks and actually truly help them. And what I realized with that experience was that there is a calling on my life. And I'm not going to share the details of it all with you at this point, but it's so much bigger than anything I could ever even imagine. I was like, this can't be what the Lord has for me, because there's no way, little old me, there's no way I could do blah, 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 blah. But I had to realize this is a bigger than me thing. And the Lord will send me the people that I need, and he will send me the resources that I need to execute the vision. All he's asking me to do is take the first step. So now, in that whole story, some of you should have sat down and thought about, like, what do I no kidding want to do? If I had plenty of wealth and all my bills were paid off, what would I do with my money? What would I do with the $1,000 a month that I'm spending on bills right now, on credit cards? What would I do with the $900 a month I'm spending on my truck? Like, what would I do with that money if I could do anything I want? Would I help somebody? Would I establish a scholarship fund? Would I take my husband or wife and just go have a good time after 50 years of working hard? Okay, so that's what I would encourage this person to do, to really kind of sit down and think about what they want. Are there young people whose lives they would like to speak into? Do they have kids? It doesn't say here if they have kids or not kids. Are the kids grown? Do they want to set aside some of their wealth in a trust to make sure that when they die, things pass along smoothly and the kids don't go crazy and spend it all up? Is there some kind of nonprofit effort that's on your heart? Like, I would, no kidding, take the time to dream. I would actually take an afternoon, even if you and the missus need to go to a hotel or something and just have a little mini strategic retreat. Okay. Now for those of you who are listening to this, you're like, wow, I need to do a strategic retreat in my life, but you're not sure how to do that. Guess what I'm good at? Hey, y'all, I'm really good at helping you with strategic retreats for your finances and your future. Like, we can, no kidding, sit down and go through what you want, what it takes to get there, and how you can free up the funds to implement your dream. Oh, I love what I do, y'all. All right, so that's where I would start with this individual. And then, they say, should we invest more or start another savings for fun? I'm all about having fun when you get to a certain point. Now, there is something that I give all my clients who engage me as their financial planner. It is called the recommended percentages worksheet. And what it does is it lists the different categories. So food, how much should you be spending on food? You pop in how much you make at the top and it calculates it out, the ranges of what you should be spending. What should you be spending on housing and utilities? About 25% of your income. What should you be spending on essential clothing? Maybe about 2 to 5% of your income. What should you be spending on transportation? Maybe about 10 to 15% of your income. Okay, so if I pop this in here and somebody makes $10,000, it might tell me that they should be spending about $2,500 to $3,500 a month on their house. And you can evaluate your life by these recommended percentages. You evaluate your life by these percentages, and once you have your life in line with what's recommended, then you begin to have some fun. And I'm going to tell you, the most fun I ever have is really when I'm able to speak into somebody's life. Okay? And I don't give money. Don't come asking me for money. I don't give money, and the Lord didn't call me to that. But I give time, and I give effort, and I give energy, and I help you change your life. All right, next one. I am a full-time caregiver to my dad, making approximately $1,700 a month. I pay the rent and utilities for the home that we live in. His monthly allowance is $750 a month, and neither one of us have anything saved. Please help. This is a sticky situation. The very first thing that I'm going to ask you, you already told me your numbers, you already told me you don't have anything saved, but the very first thing I'm going to ask you is, do you have any siblings? And if you do have siblings, then I'm going to encourage you to make sure that every agreement you have with you and your dad is written out. Because here's what has happened to a lot of people that come to me after the fact as a financial planner. They gave up their life to take care of mama or to take care of daddy. They were supposed to get the house, and they were supposed to get a portion of dad's estate. This person says that neither one of them have anything saved, so I suspect daddy doesn't have much of an estate. But let's just say you're living in the house, you're managing what you make, you're managing what he makes, and your expectation is that you're going to inherit that house when he dies. If you have siblings, even if you don't have siblings, actually, if you don't have siblings, you should still have it in a will. But if you have siblings, it's essential that you capture your father's wishes in a will, that he captures his wishes, not you, but that he captures his wishes in a will, because here's what happens. The family members, the siblings, they're all too happy to let one person take care of mama or take care of daddy. They give up their livelihood. They think they're going to do this and do that. And as soon as the parent dies, now everybody wants to sell the house and get their share of the money. And everybody wants to split up the estate and get their share of the money. And it happens all the time. Okay? Now, they didn't say any of that here, so I don't know if that applies to them, but I'm sure it applies to somebody who's watching today. So if you're a caregiver and this is all you're making, we got to make sure that you have enough coming in. If you don't have enough coming in, then we have to look at ways for you to get more coming in. We also need to look at ways, your dad is approaching the age where he should be able to qualify for a lot of state-sponsored stuff, especially if he doesn't have anything saved. Now, part of the problem with qualifying for a lot of state-sponsored stuff is they want you to use up all of your estate before you start drawing their medical benefits and their caregiving and their, long-term care and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's a balance that you have to pay. And if you're planning on living in this house, that may not be a solution for you. However, with the numbers that you're giving me, I can't tell if you're making the $1,700 a month or if that's your dad's check, and from that you pay everything and give him $750 to have whatever he wants to buy with. I would need to really talk with you some more to kind of understand the exact numbers. But if these numbers are additive, then you should have enough to start saving something up. And I would encourage you, even at your age, even if it's just $100 a month, I would start building your savings. I know that sounds like it would be really tough, but at your age, if you start saving $100 a month, And I didn't read the ages online, but I'm looking at them here in the question. At your age, if you would start saving $100 a month, when you get to be your dad's age, you'll be a millionaire. If you invest that in the stock market in a good growth mutual fund, you'll be a millionaire. And when you're 61, you can hire nurses and you can hire other people, and you won't have to burden your children with taking care of you because you'll be a millionaire. Now, you didn't say this in your message here, but if you are caregiving at such a young age, I want you to do your soul searching and make sure that this is really what you want to do. Because what I'm gathering from this, and again, it's hard to tell tone from email, but what I'm gathering from this is that you are shortchanging your future to help him. And don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying don't take care of your parents, all right? That's not what JJ said. JJ did not say, forget your parents, you will live your life. That's not what I said. But we have to make sure that what you're doing long-term is fulfilling to you. And so if you are caring for him and you're not having your own career, we can sit down and look at ways that you can start to do some things that will not only bring in extra money so that you can put towards savings, but will also be fulfilling for you so that you don't get burnt out. And so before I move on, one tip I will give this individual is to look for local programs, whether state-sponsored or city-sponsored, county-sponsored, local, ministry-sponsored. Look for local respite programs and see if any of those may be of benefit for you. For those of you who don't know what respite is, they use respite for a lot of different things. Like you can be a respite foster care. That's something I'm pursuing right now, is being a respite foster care. Somebody is a foster parent day in and day out. As a respite foster care, I would take those kids maybe for the weekend or maybe for a week so they can go on a vacation. When you're caregiving, you really need a break. You need to be able to decompress and just breathe, okay? And so respite care, when it comes to someone who's got a long-term illness or something, respite care can provide care for that person under a certain amount of time, and you, the caregiver, can go get a break. That's really what it is. And every state and every county and every agency has a different way they do it. My ex-in-laws actually run a multi-million-dollar company that does respite care in the state of North Carolina, and I think the surrounding states. I know they're internationally certified, but I don't know if they're actually providing care internationally yet. They built that business up from the ground up, and they offer respite care anywhere from 2 days to 6 weeks, depending on the illness of the person being cared for, to give the caregiver a break. You need a break sometimes. Now, I don't know that you, the person who wrote this question, need a break, but I'm telling you about this because you may need a break. Or if you don't now, you may need these words 10 years from now. Your dad's still alive and kicking and being cared for. Next question. Okay, here is somebody who's writing on behalf of their mother. She's retired. She lives in a place where there's not a whole lot of industry to make a lot of money. Finances are a mess. Oh, I love it when people write in about their family members. It's like, tell me how you really feel, right? Her debt load is such that she is considering bankruptcy. She needs someone to help her assess her situation and come up with a plan. All right, first thing I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell everybody who might be considering bankruptcy, do not file for bankruptcy without trying my program for at least 2 months. I mean, come on, you're already in a lot of debt. Your financial life feels like it's already over. What's 2 more months, right? I'm telling you, in 2 months, if you do what I teach, you can turn the thing around. One of my very first clients was a Gold Star family, and I took them at no cost because I do that for Gold Star families, right? And they had 22 bills they couldn't pay. And what happened to them was they were in the oil field and the husband was a reservist and everything was just booming, and they bought this big, beautiful house and they bought this big, beautiful truck and they had the income to handle it. I mean, y'all remember those of you who are in the architects, you remember when the oil fields, you were just money hand over fist. And then what happened, right? Remember what happened? And then all of a sudden, all these people had no money. And so what the husband did, he was at least resourceful enough to be able to activate his reservist job, so he was able to make some money that way. But they went from making like $12,000 a month to making $2,200 a month. And I think their mortgage was like $2,000 a month. And I was like, this ain't gonna work. But they had like a truck note. I think their truck note was like $900 a month. I mean, the numbers were astronomical. But if you stop and think about it, you're making money hand over fist. You don't ever think about the unexpected that can happen. And it happened to them. And they're like, well, the lawyer told us we're gonna need to file bankruptcy. And I said, okay, how much is the lawyer gonna charge you? About $2,500, $3,000. Okay. You're going to have to come up with that money somehow. And all the bankruptcy is going to do is it's going to put you on a payment plan. Here's what I'm going to recommend to you. You scrimp and save and scramble everything you can get together and put $500 aside in a savings account to protect against emergencies. And then you're going to go on a dry bones, scorched earth spend plan, and you're going to cut everything you can cut. And then what you're going to do is you are going to eat some humble pie. And you are going to write a letter to every single one of your creditors. This is what's called a pro rata letter. You're going to show them your dry bones budget, and you're going to explain that you don't have any more money. You're going to explain that we were making this much, now we're only making this much, and this is our situation, and we're trying, but in the foreseeable future, we don't have any job prospects. And you are going to send that to them every month. And she was like, you mean I have to write 22 letters every month? I was like, yes, you do. But let me tell you what started happening. When their creditors saw that they were serious about this thing, things began to change. Now, let me make sure that I cover this completely. In a pro rata letter, you're including your budget. So if your budget includes, I had somebody was like paying $30,000 for private school, and they're like, well, I gotta do this. I was like, no, you can't do that. Okay. They're gonna say, pay me that $30,000. All right. You're gonna show your budget. You're gonna explain why you can't pay. And sometimes you just say, I messed up. Okay. You don't have to always go into a lot of detail. You're going to assure them that you will pay one day. You promise you're gonna pay. Now, you're not gonna have to pay most of the time, but you're gonna make that commitment to them. And then you're going to explain, here's all the other bills I have, and here's all the money I have to work with. And here's your cut of what little money I have to work with. And you're going to do that every month. And she did. And by the second month, people started dropping things. And this is what always happens. In fact, it happens now even sooner. Where you find they start dropping fees and balances, and now they have the new payment plan. So when this person was doing that, they didn't have the hardship payment plan like they do today. Like today, you call up your credit card and they're like, okay, we'll put you on a 5-year no interest plan. We'll shut your card down. Like they didn't do that back then, right? But they started to once they saw that she was serious. And 3 months later, y'all, she had completely turned their financial situation around. Now, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy because baby girl wanted to go to cheer camp, and her life was going to be over if she couldn't do this cheer camp. And I was like, well, your financial life is going to be over if you have to file for bankruptcy. It's going to be a lot worse on baby girl. Now, I didn't say it like that. I would think I was probably nicer. Actually, you know what? I wasn't real nice back then. I probably did say it like that. But she found a way to raise the money for it, and they began to learn. And those lessons, not only did she pass on these lessons to her children, but then she started leading people in Financial Peace University. And I believe now she's actually a financial coach. So there you go, right? If your mother is facing bankruptcy, I can absolutely help her come up with a plan. The thing is, she's got to be willing to work the plan. And a lot of people just think they're going to hit the easy button and the bankruptcy is going to make it all go away. Bankruptcy is not going to make it go away. Bankruptcy is going to do the same thing my plan is going to do. It's just that my plan is going to make you have to be the owner of your life. The good news about that is, doing my plan, you don't have to pay for a bankruptcy, and then you don't have a bankruptcy on your record. Okay? And so I want to tell you today, it doesn't matter how many years you've been on this earth. It is never too late to start taking charge of your money. I have some of my best clients are people who are in their 60s and 70s. A lot of them have been widowed. They've never had to pay attention to money before, and now they're learning about money for the first time. And then their husband didn't leave insurance, and they're just kind of stuck, and they're just stressed out and overwhelmed. And I'm like, no, we got you. I got you, boo. We're going to figure this out, right? And so we figure it out. Or they may have been working all their lives, but they never married and they just never saved up to buy a house, but now they're finally able to buy a house. Like these are the possibilities that are out there, but it takes discipline with the plan. Now, one thing I will caution anybody who wants to engage me as a financial planner for a family member. Nobody is as invested in your future as you are. And what I mean by that is if you want to help your mom because your mom is siphoning your money, which is usually what people come to me for. They come to me because their mom, their daughter, their sister, whoever is taking money out of their pocket and they feel like they can't tell them no. And so they're going to want to make it a requirement. Like, I'm going to give you this money, but first you have to sit down for 3 months with this financial planner. Okay. That's usually who comes to me. The person you are paying for financial planning for most of the time does not care as much about having me help them with their finances as you do. They don't care usually until they get cut off, and then all of a sudden they care. And some people really care, but they've got so many decades of living this way that it takes them some time to really make the progress they need to make. I had one person who had bought a package with me for her sister. They actually bought a 6-month package because they kind of figured it was going to take a long time. And it did take a long time. This was like six or so years ago. And that person still isn't 100% great with money. She's better than she was. She's more confident than she was, which helps a lot. She's got her own website now, and she's running her business now. Whereas in the past, she was just kind of her head in the sand, and also not honoring her talents and giftings. Okay, so I was able to help her work through that. And from time to time, we do a follow-up. But I gotta imagine the sister who paid me is like, I really thought this was going to be a magic solution. And it can be. There have been children that I have helped teach them about money, and their parents have been so happy. But most of the time, I'm going to tell you, it is an uphill battle, and you have to be prepared for the long game. You're not just going to have me sit down with them once or twice and we're going to fix all their money problems like that, because they weren't the ones who came to me. Now, if they were the ones who came to me, I've had some people, I sat down with them for a couple hours one day, and 10 years later, they are still running strong with that 1-page spreadsheet and the principles that I taught them, right? Like, I'm like, man, I should have charged more if I knew you weren't going to come back. But I'm just so proud of people who make these changes. But they're not the ones coming to me, you are. So you got to really evaluate that. And I'm going to tell you, if y'all tired of spending money on people who don't appreciate the money you're spending, the number one way to make them appreciate it is to stop. You put that money towards something that has meaning for you. Oh, JJ told me to stop giving money to my mama. JJ told me to stop putting shoes on my nephew's feet. JJ told me to stop buying glasses for my niece. JJ told me to stop. I'm telling you to stop doing anything your heart can't do freely. That is all I'm saying. If you've got a family member that is siphoning your cash and you can't give it freely, then you can't give it freely yet. You got to get to a point where you can give it freely, or you need to not be giving it. Okay? All right. I want to thank you for hanging with me. It always makes me feel good when I see that people are on. If you have a question that you want to ask, you can go to either jjconway.org or buildingwealthtogether.com. Both of those have a teal button that says Ask JJ. You go in, it gives you a short form to ask your questions, and then it will send you to a link to book a no-cost consult, 15 minutes with me. I'm happy to do that for you, and I'm happy to contribute to your success. All right? That's all I've got for you today. Y'all take care and be blessed.
If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you subscribe at jjconway.org. Now go walk in abundance and leave a legacy.